Okay, first item is roll call. And Nia,
Present.
Lauren,
Present.
Ian.
Hi, Ben, present.
Okay, and so no seniors yet. All right. And is there any agenda changes, changes, requests, or deletions? Okay. Any oral communications? Okay, none. All right, so we need approval of the minutes for our last regular meeting that was on August 20th. And then the retreat that was just a couple of days ago on the 15th. So we can get a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll approve the minutes from our meeting.
All right, thank you. A second.
Second.
Okay, Lauren, thank you. Any additions, changes, or deletions to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? All right, thank you. Motion carries. And now the staff comments. Elise.
Just a quick point of clarification. Commissioner Klaus, how did you vote on the minutes?
I just abstained from the meeting because I missed the August meeting, and so I'm just not, yeah.
One abstention.
Yes.
Okay, thank you
Yeah.
for that clarification. Okay, so for comments, we covered a lot already this week, so we don't have a whole lot to share except for one lovely item, and that is the posters of the mural, the Black Lives Matter mural, are in production, and we should have them late next week, and we will make them available, of course, to the artists and volunteers and members of the public free. And so stay tuned for details on that, that distribution. And this is the proof of what it looks like.
Nice.
That's all we have for staff comments this evening.
And Elise, can I just ask, will it be made available digitally so if people want it to just print it from their house?
Interesting question. We hadn't considered that. I can look into it.
Just a thought.
And what size will they be, Elise?
They are, what is that, about 17 by 24, something along those lines?
Oh, great. Oh,
Larger
people will
poster
be
size.
really happy. Yeah, that's great.
So I can show you the proof.
I love that you have story on it as well. That's great.
You can get a sense of the scale.
Nice.
Yeah, very nice.
Good, all right. Hey, thank you, Elise. Next item on the agenda is a non-action item, is the California Avenue Public Art Master Plan. And we have Barbara and here to give us a briefing on that. And Elise, any words?
Not much, just by way of introduction. We have Barbara Goldstein, and we have Quinn and Amanda from her team from Art Builds Community. They have done extensive outreach to gather input for the Cal Ave Public Art Plan and are here to present some emerging themes and gather the thoughts and feedback of the commission this evening. So take it away.
Great. Thanks, Elise. Thanks, Barbara. Quinn's going to share her screen so we can share with you a quick presentation. All right. So thank you for having us this evening. We did have our last community webinar last week. And so there's going to be similar slides here if there's people watching this evening's Public Art Commission meeting. So, you know, as you know, we've been working with the Public Art Program, the Palo Alto Public Art Program, to move on this Public Art Master Plan for the California Avenue District. And you want to move on to the next slide, Quinn, please. Quinn, can you move? Thank you. It's a little stuck. It's weird. So I'm going to just go ahead and move forward. So the strengths that the plan is going to bring forward are really speaking on the identity of the district, the unique identity that we've learned much more about in the last few months through talking to community members and engaging online and social media. But it'll also really encourage people to visit the area. I think a lot of us are trying to get out of the house now. And so this is something that we will hope will encourage people to come even when time comes that we can travel. And thirdly, this plan is really going to support the economic development for the local businesses, that very hyper local group that we've learned so much more about in the last few months. Next slide. Great, thank you. So in the conversations that we've had and the social media engagement efforts, as well as some of the webinars and the Co-Urbanize website, we came up with these 4 themes. And what we really were seeing were the conversations around history, nature, diversity, and a very hyper local part of the district. And you'll see here the words that follow the 4 themes are words that really what we pulled out of the conversations and the social media communication, as well as the online website communication from community members of the district. So move on to the next slide, please. Think a little bit more. Thank you. Okay, so another question that we asked community members were the types of art they'd like to see, and you'll see here a fairly long list of the types of art. People really got excited and shared so many different ideas. And one of the ideas that we decided to use this image was street murals. And so this is a great example that we thought that we can share with the Arts Commission of a street mural that is also used for a crosswalk. But other ideas that are really interesting are wayfinding, performance art, hidden gems, and gateway, powerful in the message that they convey. So we can move on to the next slide, please. A little bit more, Quinn. These 4 images right here are some examples of other street and different types of artwork. So, oh, just a little bit back. I don't know why it's not. Sorry. I'm going to go back to the locations that we learned. If you can move to that slide, part of the slides. Not sure what's going on. Well, we can speak on this slide. So this is a screenshot of the latest and the last of what the community engagement that we received through the Co-Urbanize website that was used in the last few months with engaging with community members. As you know, we weren't able to do that in person with this project. So we were able to use Co-Urbanize and ask people to identify areas where they'd like to see art. And you'll see that here with the blue tabs. The red tabs are existing artworks, and then the purple are text messages. So the public art team was able to go out and put up signs, and we encouraged people to, while they were walking around, to text message their ideas and comments on the types of public art they'd like to see in the district. So, next slide. Good. Are we able to move to the next slide? We can take this opportunity if you have any questions so far with what I've shared until we're able to move to the next slide.
Sorry, it's kind of freezing on me right now for some reason.
Okay.
How involved did you feel that the businesses were? Because it seems like a tight-knit community there that California Avenue Business Association. Did you get a lot of comments from them, and did they participate? Are they on board with this new plan?
Yeah, so they were able to participate. We did have a focus group with some local business owners. There are a few that were able to attend just because of the timing of the day, and I think it was at the beginning of opening the streets, so they were trying to work with their schedule. In the last community meeting webinar, which we had last week, we did have some business owners attend that, and they were able to provide comments in the comment box and did email with some ideas. So I'd say that we do have support from the ones that were able to engage with us. So in the last few months.
Good.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why.
Amanda, do you happen to have the presentation? Perhaps share, if you share it
Yeah.
from your computer,
Let's see.
maybe you'll have better luck.
Okay. Let me open that. Apologies. Okay.
Sorry about that. It just froze for whatever reason. I'm trying to fix it. But Amanda, if you can find it.
Yeah. Let me open this up. Okay, and let's see if we can go to shared screen. Thank you for your patience. Let's see. Okay. Where is it? Sorry, desktop. Share. It's not letting me do that. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So, can you see my screen? Great. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so let's go and back to where we were. All right. Let me keep going. Really quick, these are some of the locations that we were able to get from the communications through online and through social media and through conversations. You'll see here drains or locations that people would like to see art, as well as alleys, and the entrance from El Camino was another location we were able to learn about. So I'm going to move forward. Let's keep going. Okay. So this is what we'd like to share with you this evening. And we put together a rough draft of a vision, a mission, and objectives. And let's move this over. So I'm just going to read the vision and the mission and give you the opportunity to look at the objectives. And this is something we can share with the commission after this evening's meeting. But the vision states, public art in the California Avenue District will reflect the unique and diverse cultural identity of the local business owners, residents, and artists. The mission that the draft mission statement we've put together is that public art in the California Avenue District will enrich the historical, diverse, and natural environment of the district with interactive and stimulating artwork. So we're going to move forward. And this is our last slide, so we can actually go back to the draft objectives if we have time to do that. But these are the kind of questions that we've been asking in the last webinar, and we'd like to ask you this evening. What history do you recall when thinking about California Avenue? What type of art would you like to see in the district, and where would you like to see the art beyond the avenue? And where do you want to see art in the district as a whole? We've included here a way for people to contact the three of us, as well as the link for the Co-Urbanize website, where you can still visit and see the way people have interacted. Everything is archived and it'll be available for the public. So that is it for now. And I just want to leave this some space for comments and questions.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have a question, just this was wonderful. Thought you did a great job collecting the information, and I loved the, I'm blanking on what the page was called, but where you had the 4 different themes, sorry.
Oh,
Themes
yeah.
is the word.
You can
I
go.
thought those were fascinating to read, what people thought represents Cal Ave and that area.
Thank you.
We're going to be expanding on the themes to develop the text for the draft report. And we'd love to have your comments on the mission, vision and objectives. If you'd like to take a look at that slide, if there are things that you have thoughts about that. They came really directly from the comments that we heard from the public and from the business owners and from the artist focus group that we had. And they've given us a lot of ideas about what may be possible there.
Okay, what type of participation was there from the different members of the public? And I think you said there was a few business owners there as well. Overall, what did you think of the participation?
We had a really big focus group with the artists. The focus group with the business owners wasn't as great, but we also had Terry Suchat came to the last public meeting that we had, and he had a few contributions to make. So I think that overall the participation was pretty good. Do you know, Amanda or Quinn, the identities of people that participated on Co-Urbanize?
I don't believe that that question was asked, the identities, if they were people who lived in the district directly. I think it was just really getting people who engage with the district in one way or another, whether they have to go into district or Caltrain or obviously before COVID, but work in the district, or they visit for food, or they live nearby, or they have participated in the district in the past in some capacity.
Yes, the majority of the feedback that we received from the participants on Co-Urbanize indicated that they did use a lot of transportation other than cars to get to Cal Ave. So we're seeing a lot of people biking, walking, and taking the train to visit California Avenue. So that was pretty much the demographic.
Was there any mention of closing part of Cal Ave or Cal Ave in general?
Oh yeah,
the traffic
definitely.
in that? And how would that play into the area and public art, especially because if it's closed off, then obviously you can put some works in the street and that sort of stuff.
There were a lot of people that would like to see Cal Ave closed.
I really like the objective 2 to enhance the pedestrian environment. I also like educating people about the identity of that particular part of Palo Alto. But I think really people hang out on Cal Ave. We've talked about this. This is a lot of restaurants, and during the weekend, the farmers market. And so enhancing that pedestrian environment with something stimulating and interactive, I think is a great idea. And again, local artists, the commission talks a lot about supporting the local artist network. So doing that to support outdoor exhibitions, I mean, really great objectives. So thank you.
Yeah, we felt it went along really well with the whole idea that people really appreciate local businesses, and the local artists really go along with that. And it came up a couple of times that it might be a really good idea to create places where people could show their work in between retail areas. And that would be a really great way to showcase, say, artists that are at Cubberley, artists that are showing at the Palo Alto Art Center, people that are students at the Palo Alto Art Center, especially when people don't really have the opportunity to go in there. it could be a really interesting way to attract people to California Avenue with their families and their friends.
I agree wholeheartedly.
So like an outdoor museum or outdoor gallery, essentially.
Right. Exactly.
Thank you, Barbara and Amanda and Quinn for this. It's great. It's super helpful. I have to say, I kind of miss the community of popping in the shops on Cal Ave a little bit. And this is like heartwarming in its own way to think about it and its future. A couple quick thoughts since you asked for them. When I would just follow Lauren in saying I really like point 2. It's consistent with some of the conversations we had in our retreat earlier this week about the relationship between art and pedestrian spaces, and even the relationship between art and pedestrian streets and carless streets. And points 3 and 4, I think, though I might have a qualm with some of the wording in a second. Nia, I thought, also in our retreat, made a really important point about being from Palo Alto and what it means and engaging with local artists. And so I think it's kind of crucial that we have that in there too. And then just one final point and a question. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be pedantic, but I don't think it's an objective to support local artists. You support them for a reason. And so if it is to build local artists or to provide opportunities for a diverse set of local artists, like we'll do that by supporting them. But and that follows to point 5, I think, a little bit too, which is that as commissioning an interactive artwork is something that we will do to pursue an objective. And so, I think implicit, it's there. It's building a intergenerational community in the Cal Ave district. And we would do that by commissioning artwork that engages across generations or something like that. But that's just 5 just reads as a tool to achieve something. And I think what we want to achieve, what the objective is built in there. But I think when we confuse those things, we sort of limit our instruments and the tools that we have available to us. But I'm really curious, and I welcome any feedback on that, or to be told that I'm just wrong and being difficult on a Thursday night. But I really found the themes appealing, and they resonated with me, and I do spend a lot of time on that street, and I thought they were great. And they're coherent. And one of the things I've sort of had as an experience about engaging with public art on the Cal Ave district is sometimes it feels a little, not scattered, because I think that can be the nature of the thing, but it feels sort of, all over the place. So you might struggle to define exactly what the art on Cal Ave does. And of course, there are a couple great murals that we could all point to. But then there's fountains, and some of it's in alleys, and some of it's right in the middle of the thoroughfare, and that's exciting. But I was curious to know if there was a sort of sense from the people you engage for what public art on Cal Ave was like, and it's a terrible term, I know. Sort of what it did. Did it feel like it was part of their community? Did it feel like there were sort of random things dropped in the middle? I mean, what was the sort of take on the art that currently exists?
I think they mostly wanted more. That's what we were hearing, more, lots of different kinds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was.
That's
Avenue, you see that there was a very deliberate attempt to create a streetscape environment with the art that was put there, say 20 or 30 years ago. And it really needs to be refreshed because the district is becoming more pedestrian friendly, especially as we move out of this environment that we're in right now. And there's a really great need to connect the pieces from the parking structures onto the Ave.
Mhm.
Any other questions, comments?
Barbara, when you say to connect the pieces from the parking structures onto the Ave, you mean those temporary murals that we have now?
No, no,
Are you talking about?
really wayfinding. It's
Okay. Okay.
the alleys become very important.
Yeah, the alleys are important on Cal Ave. Most definitely. People are always darting in and out. Yeah.
Barbara, let me just say thanks. That's it. I think that's actually what I was I didn't have the term or the concept for it, but somehow connecting the pieces, it seems to me, is a really exciting idea. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, anything else? Hey, thank you, Barbara, Amanda, and Quinn. Thank you very much for coming, joining us tonight. And we look forward for the plan to come out and we can get moving on it. Thank you.
Thank you
Great.
so much.
Comment.
Thank you. We're excited.
Good
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, good night.
night.
All right, so moving on to the action item, which is adoption of our priorities for 2021. And it was pointed out that we neglected to approve the minutes from the retreat, but we'll do that after we do the adoption of the priorities for 2021. And I thought the retreat, we had a really, really good discussion about that and hammered it out. And now we want to do the final wordsmithing and anything else that we want to add to that. And so I'll turn it over to Elise.
Wonderful, thank you. I don't have too much to add, except we have the wording where what we finished with at the retreat, which was amazing and comprehensive. Commissioner Klaus also did submit some suggestions for potential rewording and grouping. So we wanted to put those together side by side so that perhaps the commission could consider what some of those edits are and adopt the final language. So once that is adopted, the commission may go forward with adopting those final priorities, and we could amend the minutes as edited or as changed by the commission to reflect the final priorities. The other item is because some of these items were shorter term, as I recall, the bullet points on the left are the ones that we left the retreat with. And in particular, the first bullet point was considered a shorter term and some of the other ones were longer term.
Okay.
So the agenda allows for discussion of any potential funding or ideas the commission may have had since we had that conversation about that shorter term implementation. So with that, I will turn it over to you all for discussion.
Okay, let me look at
Thank you, Elise.
Nadia, is there any way to make it a little bigger? I'm on my laptop and so it's kind of small. Yeah. Thanks.
Hey, Ben, do you mind if I just quickly, unless you want folks to read first, I feel like you need to explain a little bit of what I did, or perhaps read, and then I'd appreciate the opportunity to just explain the brief changes, especially because messing with work we all did, I think, is a little presumptuous. So I want to explain what's there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
no, that would be great because I had to read them out loud to myself and it always takes me a little time. So if you'll do that, that would be great.
Thanks. And let me just say, the Brown Act, I understand the importance of it. It does make things like this quite difficult because we receive these points that we all put together, and then there's no way to actually do an edit and share them with you all.
I agree.
And so, and obviously we're not going to change it for the sake of the Public Arts Commission, but I beg your forgiveness for having just delivered this right here because there's no other way to get it to you.
No, and I should have sent my comments and I didn't. So anyway, I'm sure I'm going to love this. So go.
In the email, I said that I just flagged, well, two things. The first is that I thought it was only clear. Most of the language is all familiar. I just wordsmithed a little bit. I found a typo in my writing already, but something that was I leaned into a little bit further than we did in the conversation was the use of pedestrian-friendly streets. We talked about pedestrian traffic. I made the point a couple times about carless streets. And so I just felt it important to bold that for you all to see, because I think that went a little further than we did in our discussion. And so it wouldn't have been fair to sort of hide it in there. And then the second major or significant repackaging, nothing is new in terms of substance, is that I thought that the third bullet about projects that advance PAMP that are consistent with current issues and support a wider network of artists was redundant of points 1 and 2, which are essentially about a current crisis and supporting a wider network of artists. And so I just took the language about PAMP, and put it, because I think it's important that we affirm the master plan and work within its parameters, and put that under bullet 1, which you can see in the final sentence there. And then I took the point about a wider network of artists, and I put that under the opportunities section of develop public art projects that will advance cultural inclusion and social and racial equity. So that's the first of the restructuring. And the second, and Ben, you're the one who flagged this, and I think it's important to be in there, but I'll just make sure that you see that I moved it, which was that I thought the adoption, rollout, and implementation of the CalAV District Master Plan could best be seen in terms of education and advocacy. That might not be right. It might be its own thing because it also will encourage public art. It might also help deliver on bullets 1 and 2. But as its own thing, I wasn't still sure why we were doing it. And so I tried to tie that rollout and the importance of it to a wider objective. And so that's the quick explanation of the changes from the left of your screen to the right of your screen, I believe, if that's the way your screens are working.
All right, thank you, Ian. Any other comments about this?
I just need a few minutes to read it. So if you guys discuss, I just have to read it to hear it, so I'm going to mute myself.
Hey, Ian, can you actually expand on when you said Black Lives Mural follow on?
So, yeah, I felt like, again, Black Lives Mural was there as Black Lives Matter mural was there as an example. And so, but I felt like, and we could just leave it there as an example, although mostly what we've done here is try to recognize opportunities for the future. But one of the things I was struck by, and thanks, Mia, that is different language, you're absolutely right. It was the degree to which we, in the retreat and in our conversation with Elizabeth, we were calling upon that experience, both in terms of engaging a wider network of artists, in terms of doing art that advanced awareness around justice issues, as one that we would want to pursue again. And so maybe follow-ons isn't the right word, and so maybe it's good to have it just EG. But the idea was essentially the lessons that we learned from it were lessons that we wanted to try to pursue again. Even the idea of working with a larger number of artists across a single project is one that was raised. And so it might be that the language is better there, something like Black Lives, following the Black Lives Matter mural in both ambition and process, or something like that. But I think that there's more to the Black Lives Matter mural for the Public Arts Commission, particularly in that bullet, than simply saying it's an example, because I think we learned some really great lessons, or that's what I heard during the retreat, and that there were some takeaways in terms of how we operate that we might want to pursue. That was my thinking there, Nia. But again, I was just at home on my computer hoping that this would lead to discussion, not thinking that I was an authority here.
No, I think that's great. No, you did a nice job. That's what I was thinking, but it's always good to hear you say it, or other people to say.
Yeah, and I went to a little more specifics on how that widening network of artists works, but I don't know if we need those specifics. I kind of went on saying, grow list of participating artists to include racially and culturally diverse artists. In order to do this, use social networks and community members as contacts. In addition to the typical outreach, these networks and community members will share artist calls to their own communities. And then it went on to say, artist and advisor Elizabeth D. Fogarty will guide the commission in this effort. I don't know if we need those specifics, you know? But it helped me think about the retreat and how she's going to help us continue to reach more artists. I don't know.
I agree with you, Lauren. I don't think that this is really, we need to do
Yeah.
specifics on this at all.
Yeah.
Our priorities, and then we can come up with how we want to achieve these priorities. So I think that's a good point that you make. And as I alluded to earlier, now that we're a commission of 5, if you want to have any ad hoc committees, we can only have 2 members on them, which really hamstrings us. Because if we have 3, then it's a full meeting of the commission. And then we have to notice it and do all that good stuff. It's a public meeting.
Okay.
So, you know, some of that we need to kind of keep in the back of our mind as we want to try to do some implementation, and how do we come up with some of these things that we want to do.
Okay.
So commissioners, if I may, one piece, I was looking back at my retreat notes today and looking at both of these versions, and the one piece that seemed like it came up quite a bit in the discussion, but I'm not sure it's quite reflected in the first goal of either of these, was there's a focus on the commercial corridors, which is certainly very, very important, but there was also quite a bit of discussion about having more like neighborhood projects that builds that sort of those connections with community, and could be, you know, not necessarily based in those corridors. So I just want to bring that to your attention to see if you wanted to weave that back in, or if perhaps it's implied in the recovery language of bullet 1.
You read my mind, Elise. I wasn't going to ask the question, but I was going to say that I think it fits very nicely in the pedestrian friendly streets.
Oh, okay. So you are encompassing the neighborhoods into the pedestrian friendly streets.
Yeah, I think it goes into all of them in some form. I think it's what we decide to do, because we might find that there are certain, like a micro grant project where, you know, we specifically focus on neighborhoods. And then it could be that we also are developing art projects in neighborhoods that are, that will advance cultural inclusion and social and racial equity. So I think it's a very broad, it's one of those things I think less is more in this case. So I think we're kind of putting stuff out there, but not too tight to get ourselves sucked in.
Let me make sure this other opportunities include position paper, infographic, outreach to new council members, and outreach to current, you know, outreach to all council members. Can we say that? Because I think we do need to reach out to all council members. Do you guys agree?
I agree 100%.
So just change that word to all.
Yeah, great catch, Lauren.
And I think
Just
public
to
art in the neighborhoods is an important point too, because that also leads to that discovery of finding things that are unexpected. And it ties into that, what we want to do with public art. So if you have it in the neighborhood, you turn a corner and there's a piece of public art, you know, it kind of gets you going. So, and
Do you
again,
think,
you know, it can be wayfinding, all kinds of different things.
you know, I'm also wondering if maybe we should, in addition to the Cal Ave District Master Plan, also say our public art master plan. Because I feel like we're still working on that, and we still have pieces to put together on that. So I'm wondering should we be including that as well somewhere?
And we also have the Baylands plan too.
Isn't that included in the master plan in some form, or am I just guessing?
The master plan had recommendations for corridor specific plans, and we did the one for the Baylands corridor first, and then the Cal Ave corridor is the second one.
Okay, so it's kind of all encompassing. Yeah. So maybe just saying of our master plans, and then we can put Cal Ave, Baylands, or something, whatever. who's ever writing, that's fine.
I am really excited about this year. It's going to be great. There's a lot of good stuff. And it's going to be fun to work with Elizabeth Foggy too.
Now, there was a little bit of discussion about the second bullet item, and it's BLM mural follow-ons. Do we want to change that wording? I think Ian was a little, he wasn't real comfortable with that. So do we want to, I'm not sure how we can change it because it's not really a follow-on to the BLM mural. It's, we're following council's direction about doing social and racial equity projects. So the BLM mural is one shining beacon that we have, and how do we highlight that? And then, you know, everything else after that is not going to be a follow-on, but it's going to be a separate project.
One, as I was responding to Mia, and one way of phrasing would be something like, and widening network of artists touch on this, but it's essentially learning from and redeploying the lessons learned from the Black Lives mural process, or you know, it's a little bit of the idea of changing slightly how we do some of the things we do based on what we learned from that.
And I want to add, I'm thinking too, Ben, Ian, I agree with you. But I was going to say, what if we say develop public art projects that will continue to advance? Because I think we need to give ourselves a little credit. And the reason is because I once asked Elise if there's a way that we can determine, you know, the types of, for our internal purposes, you know, the backgrounds of our artists that we've had over the years. And I do know we've had a number of women. We have had artists of color. We don't ask people, we're not required, and we don't ask them that information, and we don't need to ask them that information. But I do know we do have some diversity. And so I think we shouldn't forget that we do, it might not be, I think it just, yes, I'm aware that we do have a multitude of artists. So I think something like that, just to say that we have done stuff, we might not have done it specifically, but I think we have been thoughtful of, and I think it's our processes, like the way the panels, like the fact that we don't know what people look like. You know, we might know their gender or sexual, not sexual orientation, but their gender. But I think that we're going into a lot of these as blind, so to speak, blind. And so we don't create biases with some of these art, which is a good and bad thing. But I think we should give ourselves a little credit. So.
You know, and I agree, Ania, and in a lot of ways we're hamstrung in things that we can ask.
Correct.
And applications and that sort of stuff. So you just, you know, maybe have a picture and a few words and you got to go with that. So, you know, that's a little tough. That makes it a little tough to do that. You know, I think widening the network of artists is a good point. And we can widen it from the lessons that we learned with the BLM mural. But how can we put that into words without specifically calling out the BLM mural?
Assess gateways, semicolon, learning from and implementing lessons from the BLM mural, including the importance of widening network of artists. Again,
sorry to interject. We're talking about opportunities, or this sounded like an objective?
No, I feel that that's included in the widening the network of artists, and if we can expand that maybe to say lessons learned from BLM or something like that, to because we are widening the network of artists because of what we learned from BLM as part of it. So how do we incorporate that into without, from
So I'm going to throw a wrench in this conversation. Can we clarify, Ian? I think this was your wording, transportation gateway. Is that a plural? Transportation's gateways. Can we define that? 'Cause
Yeah, I think
that's throwing
the-
me off, I think.
it might be better left to somebody else who, I think it might have been Lauren who's discussing it in the retreat, but it was the idea of utilizing, as I understood, it was the idea of utilizing ways that people enter Palo Alto to make sure that we make it feel like it's an inclusive and welcoming space. But again, that was borrowed.
Yeah, some of the gateways are the Caltrain stations, the transit hub that's down by the University Avenue Caltrain station, and then people coming in from the different freeways, coming down Sand Creek or Sand Hill and Page Mill and Embarcadero and Oregon Expressway off of 101. So I think those are transportation gateways.
Thank you. So maybe I'm overthinking or underthinking, but I feel like transportation gateways I'm not sure if I would put it under develop public art projects that will continue to, sorry, it's so small, I can't even read the font right on my computer, I apologize. I'm wondering, because transportation's gateways, I think where I'm coming from, and excuse me for rambling for a second, is that I think it brings a diversity of people in and out of the city of Palo Alto. It has the capacity to do that, let's put it that way. But I'm not sure it directly always will, in this case, relates to advancing cultural inclusion and social and racial equity through public art, our public art projects.
So
Well,
go
go
ahead,
ahead, Elise.
Commissioner Gordon, go ahead.
I just think we were, when we were talking about it at the retreat, the reason why Black Lives Matter mural came up is because when people came to Palo Alto, that was kind of an art piece that they came to see, and then they stayed. So we kind of incorporated that Hamilton Ave piece as a gateway. And I do think that depending on the type of work, one example we talked about was even temporary, poetry when people get off the train can make you feel like, wow, community I want to visit, I want to be a part of.
So it's a destination, right? Would it be destination?
Well, BLM was kind of a destination, whereas this temporary artwork like chalk poetry or a performance artist when people get off the bus or the train would be totally temporary. So
yeah,
maybe we're trying to do too much with this bullet point.
Well, I think the other thing to keep in mind is gateways come up several times in the public art master plan as opportunities. And so it seemed like something that would be in keeping with the master plan and an opportunity to have something perhaps more permanent that welcomes people and announces Palo Alto and our commitment to social and racial equity. So I think that's some of the background when we were talking about gateways and doing something that's more permanent, recognizing that the mural is temporary.
Hey, any other comments or?
I would just, now I'm thinking about it more, and Lauren's chalk point really resonates with me. I mean, there are literally cities that are designed so that when you get off their public transportation, you're intimidated. intentionally so.
Oh my gosh.
And like the art and the structures, they do that so the outsiders don't feel welcome, and outsiders, that word includes a lot of people.
Wow.
And the idea of the idea, and it doesn't mean that that's where that point belongs, but just thinking about our larger work of people, including commuters and visitors who come, say, to see people being affirmed in their space and sharing the space of Palo Alto, to me, does have something about inclusion to it, and adopting intention. I mean, it's one of the reasons why sort of the transition, as we talk about Cal Ave, I think from whatever it is, Emerson over there, closer to Alma to Cal Ave is sort of a nice little transition that makes you feel like you're going through a place and you're going to merge in another place and be sort of welcome, and it's going to be vibrant and fun. And so I do think we can do something that is about inclusion and gateways. But it doesn't have to sit as it does in this document.
Yeah, and again, we don't want to get into specifics, but more the priorities, and then later, as we implement this, then we can get more into the specifics of how to do this. But we want to have a overarching plan for the next 2 years of what we want to do and what we want to accomplish.
One note, Ben, is just the opportunities include, obviously those warrants on the working draft section. Those exist in part because I felt like some of the priorities were in fact implementation tools, and it was important to give them voice. But to your point about specificity, you could in theory just drop the opportunities include, and just have 3, or develop a 4th bullet point or something like that. I mean, it's a rather radical step because you lose a lot of nice language that can help guide us, but it's just a.
Well, and to your point, I think you want to do the why and the how. And I think the opportunities include is the how part of that. Why do we want to do the first part, and then we can do, this is how we're going to do it, and broad strokes. And then later on, we get down to the nuts and bolts about it. It's always easy to say why, but you also want to put how along with that so people understand why you're doing the why part of it. Any other comments or anything? Do people feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable what on the right-hand side that we've kind of wordsmithed this and come up with this?
I'm feeling comfortable.
And the one thing I'd like to see is what Elise was saying as well, is about in the neighborhoods. I don't know if we put anything in there about the neighborhoods.
Add that to the, so let's see, encourage pedestrian traffic. Storefronts and commercial corridors, neighborhoods. You could add neighborhoods to that. We have quite a few separate neighborhoods in Palo Alto. But we will try to serve them as best.
And in those neighborhoods, you do have storefronts and commercial corridors with the strip malls and that sort of stuff. So.
I think you would want it to be neighborhood something. You can't really be located near all the neighborhoods. I mean, you could be located near neighborhood intersections, neighborhood areas of focus, neighborhood gathering points, neighborhood icons, obviously not, but
gathering points like parks,
something of the sort, yeah,
something like that.
Well, one of the examples we had cited was Martha Sakelario's, and so it really was something that was discoverable in a neighborhood, not necessarily tied to a commercial corridor. And so allowing opportunities for, you know, a street or a block or a, you know, for other types of connection. So I just offer that up for consideration as well.
That was a good example, Elise.
Hey, any other comments about this?
Sorry, Ben, I just have one more, and I just want to make sure that we're all seeing it the same way. Because we've struggled with it a bit, it seems to me that Lauren, when you were describing how, and it may just be the language that Nadia put in there, but when you were describing the Black Lives Matter mural as an example of that, it wasn't simply because it was a destination artwork, right? Like that was as much about the process as it was about the outcome, and the outcome was great because it brought people in. But we don't want to be seen to be advocating. We don't want to be advocating cultural inclusion, social and racial equity for the sake of producing art that people like because it helps produce destination artwork.
Correct. I agree with you. That's not our intent, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So does that need to be reworded then? Yeah, I don't know. But I know the point you're making, right? We want artists creating artwork that makes us feel included. Culture, no matter what culture, social or racial equity. You know what I'm saying? I'm losing it a little bit, but I get your point. So do we have to reword that, I wonder?
I think so. And Ian, I think that's a good point that we're not developing these for racial cultural inclusion and social and racial equity. We're doing this for the public art program. And one of the benefits is the cultural inclusion in that. So how do we, kind of reword that, that we're not specifically doing it for that, but, as overall part of the program.
Well, I think he was saying that we weren't specifically creating it to become a destination piece. We wanted artists. Yeah.
And that's a good outcome if it does become a destination.
Right,
piece.
but that's not our goal.
Right.
Our goal is to be inclusive and right by supporting the right artists and therefore having the correct artwork that reflects cultural inclusion and social and racial equity.
Well, maybe that's the word is that reflects cultural, and take it away. We'll continue to advance and replace that with reflects.
Does anybody have any objection with me saying that we should just take out Black Lives Matter mural? Because and I'm not saying this is it's just, I think it's something that it's widening. We're focusing now on widening our network of artists. And I think that the mural did help with that. But I think it's something that we're just looking again at our, how we advance cultural inclusion and social and racial equity.
That's an excellent point, Nia, and I agree 100%.
Yeah.
It's like we're hanging our hat on this BLM mural.
Well, and I get the discomfort with that, right? Because I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
And the thing is, I will be very honest and say that it would have been nice to do something like this from the Art Commission, but I think there is much more clout and we were able to move things a lot faster and quicker and better with the city council's push. So, So thank you, City Council, if you're hearing us.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I would then engage with you in a dialogue about I'm comfortable with will continue to advance. Like, I think we can take that on as a mission. I don't think we merely have to reflect.
Well, I agree with you because, well, okay, just, yeah, go ahead and leave it in. Thank you. Because by advancing culturally inclusive and socially and racially equity artists, that artwork is going to reflect those values, right? So I think.
Hey, any other comments or questions about this? Do we want to completely take out the BLM part of that? Or
That's what she's
I
done.
am so proud of that BLM mural, but you know, is it? Do we need it to have in this in the priorities?
I personally don't think it's really necessary, but I'm okay keeping it in too.
One solution would be to go back to the way it was before, which was using it as an example, and you could put widening network of artists, use it like as was conducted, or for example, as was done with the Black Lives Matter mural, continuing the efforts of the process of the Black Lives mural. You return to using it as an example for how to widen network of artists.
Because it was a new way to call artists. The process was different than what we've been doing in the past.
Very different. And
So
it's something else that down the line we want to discuss as well. So we want to, as with the BLM mural, or the process with the BLM mural, something like that.
I mean, I guess the question is, at some point, obviously we want, these are our goals for the coming year, or working year. But I guess at some point, and in like half the year, we'll probably go back, right, and take a look at it and see what we've done.
Well, and generally staff uses the priorities for the coming year to, we keep it in mind as we're bringing projects forward. So for instance, the Cal Ave district plan, we knew that was a priority. We wanted to initiate that before the year was up. So it's something that we use as guideposts. It's, and usually it's somewhat open so that we can look for the proper opportunities to implement these priorities.
Okay, anything else about this? Everybody comfortable with it? I'm comfortable with it. I think this is good. It's a good reworking of what we came up with during the retreat. And thank you, Ian, for doing this. It's a good starting off point, and I think everybody got their input and all that into this. Before we get off of this, there's one thing that I want to discuss, and it's microgrants. And I'm going to turn it over to Elise about microgrants.
Sure, thank you, Ben. So we've been looking at, looking more deeply into what kind of opportunities for microgranting there are out there. There are lots of really interesting examples of what people are doing. We've gotten a little bit of buzz from some of our other colleagues within the city who are working with business owners, really excited about the opportunity of these microgrants moving forward. And so I'm not sure if the commission is ready to or open to discussing potential funding for the microgrants at this time, or defer it to next month, but it's open. The examples I've been looking at, the closest one would be West Hollywood, and those opportunities are self-managed. So they send a letter of interest and have a reversible, very temporary project that they will carry out. And in West Hollywood, they gave a stipend of $600. Based on how much work goes into a lot of these, and or if there are material costs, I would recommend that perhaps we go a little bit higher into 1,000 per project, something along those lines. And I think we could move forward very quickly with putting out a call if the commission's comfortable and ready to do that. And we could base that call based on the input that you all give us this evening as well.
Any thoughts about micro grants?
I think they're important, and I think now's better than ever. I mean, there's no right time, and I think just considering everything in our world, I think we should move forward. I guess the question is, I feel like, if you don't mind, if I can ask, is there a way that we can, it's nice, I think, sometimes to have the artists come to us with ideas, but I'm also wondering if there's, looking at our priorities, are there things that we should be thinking about? Like, should we be focusing maybe on saying that, we want it to be family street focused or something like that? Should we be thinking about that right now? Or should we just kind of let it, we'll see what artists give us? I mean, is now the time that we should be thinking about our priorities and how to fit those into the micro grants? It's just something to think about.
How does the timeline work when you give a micro grant? Is it like a normal call out? And what's the process? I'm looking at the West Hollywood one right now. But if you have a quick explanation of how it works.
Sure, it would be a letter of interest. So a proposal, say it's a musician who, would like to perform 4 different times in the downtown and Calab corridors. And, we would have to put some parameters around making sure that there isn't a crowd drawn. We'd have to figure out all of those kinds of opportunities. Mm-hmm. But they would basically put in a proposal for what they might like to do. So for instance, another artist may say, oh, I've gotten permission from this building owner and this building owner to do temporary projects with vinyl tape that I would like to install and have in place. Someone else may decide to print a poster and deliver it to households in various neighborhoods and have people color them in and post them.
Right. Okay, I get it. So you just let people know that 10 micro grants or 5 micro grants are available, and they give you their letter of intent.
Right.
Okay.
So yes, and a lot of these are very temporary, and so I can't recall how many West Hollywood was planning to roll out in the first tranche of them, but it would be something that we could definitely pilot one series of them, see what works, what doesn't work. Is the funding too limited? Is it, what happens there? And then determine if we want to scale it up somehow.
All right, thank you, Elise. And the funding would come just out of the budget?
Yes, it would come out of the municipal percent for art budget.
All right, great, thank you. And this is something that we can also do if we write a position paper about the percent for art. And one of the other things that the commission is doing and the funding and all that. So, it kind of ties into that as well. And I think it's a good idea. I think we put it on the next meeting agenda, and then we can discuss it. And then I think staff can come up with a few more specifics for it, and then bring it forward, and we can discuss it then. Hey, hi, Senya.
I'm so sorry.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
Yeah, I don't know if I count as an attendee. I mean, because I think I mean, most of this meeting so far.
Yeah, I think it'll just be noted that you attended, what time? you
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. Sorry about that.
All right, so any other things about our priorities that we want to talk about?
I like the change to bullet 1. I think there's an extra comma in the bullet 1 in case that's relevant.
Oh. Mhm.
But I wasn't sure how the first part of the bullet 1 jives with the remainder of the sentence, which is, and that advance PAMP long-term goals. The first part makes sense, but after the comma, I didn't really kind of understand how that comes together. Lauren, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm reading to myself again.
Yeah.
Aloud.
So-
That's how I'm gonna work it in my brain.
As I see it, Sonia, the will support projects that encourage pedestrian traffic and the use of friendly streets that are located near neighborhoods as well as commercial services and that advance PAMP long-term goals. And so those are 3 frames for the project. In my mind, when I was in essence putting the PAMP at the bottom at the end there, was that it encompasses the other 2. We'll do those 2, but in the frame always of PAMP's long-term goals, because everything has to be consistent with it. That was my thinking. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be interpreted. It's all, the reader is the important person, not the writer.
Right.
But anyways, that was the concept.
My only thing was, because when we were talking about it before, during the retreat, was that these may be short-term projects. And I don't know if we want to tie them to long-term goals. And the way it's kind of put together, it seems to suggest to me when I first read it that it needs to aid the recovery as well as advance long-term goals. That's how I read it. So it was sort of 2 conditions. But if it's not intended to be that way, maybe we need to tweak it a little bit.
Why don't we just take out long-term and just say that advanced PAMP goals, because there are some short-term,
Perfect.
medium, and long-term goals.
Yeah.
But we just say the goals of the PAMP, then.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that the way I'm hearing what Ian has to say, that covers his intent as well.
We could put short, medium, and long-term, but I think it just, makes it a longer sentence that doesn't mean so much. Say goals.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to put a time duration. I think maybe this first bullet is really about addressing the recovery or aid in recovery from the COVID crisis. I think really that's whether or not that's a 3 months, 6 months, 9 months project, we don't know, right?
Right. All right, good points, Sonia. Thank you. Anything else? Anybody else? All right, with that, can I have a motion to approve our priorities for the next, for the 2021 year?
I'll motion to approve the priorities for the 2021 year.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sonia. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Thank you. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. This was really, really good discussion that we had. to carry on from the retreat. So thank you, everybody, for your input on this. And one
Yeah,
other,
the revision is much better. Sorry.
right, thank you. One other business we have to do is the approval of the minutes from the retreat. So if I can have a motion to approve the minutes from the retreat.
I move to approve the minutes from the retreat.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Nia. Okay, we put the motion to vote. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. And that motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. This is a real good discussion tonight and a continuation from the retreat. Now, any announcements to be made? Great, thank you. And the next meeting will be Thursday, October 15th. And if you have any agenda items or anything that you want added, please send them on to Elise and we'll discuss those as well. Hey, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Elise. Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, Kristen, for attending. And thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Stay well and safe. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you so much.
Right. That's fine.